the National Swedish Day. And joining us to discuss this is Sweden's Ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Per Lindgärde. Thank you so much for joining us, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great. Let's talk about the excitement which is in the air. I'm sure Sweden is really excited about tomorrow. So why do you celebrate this day?
Well, the reason that we celebrate the 6th of June as a national day is basically that I think there are two reasons for it. And the first one is that the Swedish King Gustav Vasa was elected in 1523.
That's quite a long time.
That's a long time ago as the King of Sweden. And it was the start of or the continuation of our independence, and it was a crucial moment in our history. The second reason is that we, on the 6th of June 1809, adopted a new constitution, a more modern constitution. So that's the two reasons behind it, but honestly we have not celebrated the 6th of June as a public national holiday for more than about between 15 and 20 years. Before that it was just the Swedish Flag Day.
Okay.
That was celebrated, but that's the background.
Okay, perfect. And congratulations on this day.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Uganda and the relationship between Sweden and Uganda. It's one that has been going on for decades and rather very strongly bonded.
Yes.
We just wanted to understand what Sweden's interests are in this relationship.
Yes. Well, let me start by saying that Sweden and Uganda have a long-term relationship. And it's an historic relation. It goes back to the 1980s when several of today's political leaders in Uganda were actually refugees in Sweden, like the Prime Minister, like the First Lady, like the Minister of Trade, and there are some others as well. So I think that has laid a very important foundation for building the excellent bilateral relation that Sweden and Uganda have today. That as a background, when it comes to our interest in Uganda, I think the main interest is to support Uganda's efforts to develop its country, and in line with your own priorities and your own national development plan. And we're doing this through a strategy that the Swedish government has adopted. It's a 5-year strategy for our development cooperation with Uganda. It ends 2023, and I mean, Sweden is a committed development partner to Uganda and have been so for quite some time. And maybe just to mention some of the areas where we have interventions, where we are providing support, for example, to strengthen human rights, democracy, gender equality, to get greater access to renewable energy efficiency, to help in the fight against violence against women and girls, to get better maternal and health, child health, as well as helping creating an environment for job creation and employment.
Wow.
So that is, I think, our main interest, as I said. But I think also the development assistance that we've had for many years have also, it's a good foundation for broadening and expanding our cooperation in other areas, and especially thinking of trade and the commercial exchange. The trade volume is on a rather low level, but we see opportunities in different areas when it comes to energy, for example. Public transport is another area, and actually Uganda has a trade surplus with Sweden presently, and it's very much because of the retail giant IKEA, who is buying coffee from Uganda to its stores in different parts of the world. But I also actually, where we have been working with this as well, try to also to broaden our cooperation when it comes to cultural exchange. We had the Swedish-Ugandan singer Sabina Dumba was visiting Uganda. She's living in Sweden. She was here, I think, about 2 years ago, and there has been cooperation in the music sector for some years, and I think we can do more in that field as well.
I'm so excited because when I was in Örebro, in Sweden, I partly did my masters in Norway, so would then cross to Sweden back and forth. When I was in Örebro, I was surprised I found Ugandan coffee, and I was really, really excited. So I think it's one area that we need to strengthen. But let's talk about some of the projects that you're implementing. I'm sure there are so many in this country. But if you just maybe highlight 2 or 3 that are close to your heart that have caused a big impact here in Uganda.
Yeah. I mean, let me try to mention a few. There are many, as you said. As I already mentioned, one priority area for us is human rights, the rule of law, and here we are contributing to the DGF, the Democratic Governance Facility. And one project within that framework, so to say, is support to access to justice. And about 700,000 people have benefited from this project and got access to justice through the legal aid service program. Another sector is the health sector, where we have provided support for many, many years. And for example, we have a cooperation with the UNFPA. Since the last 10 years we have been training midwives. I think more than 500 midwives have been trained and are now working in different parts of Uganda, some of them in very remote areas. We also have a cooperation with UNICEF when it comes to a project. It's a Boda referral service for pregnant women, and up in the West Nile. I think this project has been crucial, especially now during the lockdown with the restrictions, etc. But we got a permission from the Ministry of Health and the local authorities that enabled the pregnant women to use Boda to go to the hospitals and clinics. So during the months of March and April, about 1,500 pregnant women benefited from this project.
It's quite an intervention.
Yes, it is. So I think that's a very good result, very successful, and saved lives, definitely.
Yeah, it actually hit the international headlines. I remember international cables picked it up. I think it was really a good initiative.
Let me maybe one more example, because it's a long-term cooperation we have had between 5 public universities in Uganda and 11 Swedish universities. It's a cooperation that has gone on for more than 20 years, and we have contributed with, I think, $100 million building research capacity, building capacity both on institutional level but also on individual level. And about 750 scholars, postdoctoral, PhD, and a master's level have been trained within the framework of this cooperation.
Wow. Thank you so much for giving back to Ugandans. I mean, that's really moving. Listen, the clock is ticking towards February 2021, when we are supposed to be going to the polls, and I know that at the heart of the Swedish embassy and the Swedish government is democracy. And elections plays a critical role in building a democracy.
Yes.
We have gone through a very turbulent time during the coronavirus pandemic, and the president recently spoke and said that if the pandemic persists until July, then it will be difficult to have an election. Let's get your views on the upcoming elections from your point.
Honestly, I think the most important is to have a peaceful election, to have a peaceful electoral process without violence.
Yeah.
And in order to get that, I think it's important to have a level playing field where all parties, all candidates can campaign freely, and where they can hold peaceful rallies, peaceful meetings, public meetings, where they have access to public media. So basically, I mean, it's all about respecting some fundamental human rights principles and freedoms when it comes to freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of the media. So we hope that that will be fully respected. We have seen, of course, that the police earlier has used excessive force against members of the opposition, and this is very important that we hope that we will not see a repetition of that. That as I said, that really the fundamental human rights principles can be respected. At the same time, of course, all candidates have to refrain from intimidation and inflammatory, the use of inflammatory language.
Yeah.
Because I think that could honestly hamper the prospects for having a peaceful election. Finally, I think having a free and fair and peaceful election, that will send a very important signal to the world, to potential investors. It will increase investment flows because what at least the investors from Sweden would like to see, that they would like to see that they could invest in a country that have a good governance, where there is political stability, and so I think a peaceful election will send important signals in that respect as well.
I agree with you, but the coronavirus has changed things the way they could be. I mean, yes. The assembly may not necessarily be there because of the social distancing. You know, the pandemic has brought, it could cause a change in the way Uganda's elections are held. Yeah. What would be your advice on, how to manage this electoral process amidst the coronavirus pandemic?
it's difficult to answer that question, and it depends how the situation will develop, how the COVID-19 pandemic will develop in the country. And I think the president himself has said that if the situation has not improved, I think he said in July, there may be a reason to postpone the elections. But for the moment, I think, and that I would like to stress, that the Ugandan government has been very successful in fighting the pandemic. And now they are easing up the restrictions, and let's hope that they will be able to keep the low number of positive cases that you have in the country presently, because then I think it will be possible to adjust the roadmap, the electoral roadmap, and to have the elections in February.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I thought you'd comment on that was because everyone is talking about the pandemic and how it's changing everything, and to some extent the coronavirus pandemic has affected many economies. True. Big names are crumbling down. New York Stock Exchange is affected. The global markets are literally going down on their knees. The oil prices and these, most of the economies have been affected. What everyone is talking about right now, Your Excellency, is the recovery plan. And how do we get up from where we are right now? So I just wanted to know what Sweden's recovery plan is, and what lessons can we learn from them as a country if we are going to actually get up. Because the IMF, the World Bank, and different reports are predicting that African economies could take about 5 to 10 years to recover. Let me get your thoughts on that.
You're right. The COVID-19 pandemic have had serious impact on the economy in Sweden, in Uganda, every country around the world. And in Sweden, I think the GDP will drop about 4%, maybe even more. The unemployment rate is going up as well to, they're estimating this year about 10%, even more. And also in Sweden, the recovery will take several years. Of course, the government has taken many measures to mitigating the economic effects of the pandemic. But I think it's honestly, I think it's too early to make a comprehensive assessment or a review of the measures that have been taken, and to draw any lessons learned already. But maybe one lesson that can be learned already now is that at least in Sweden we have not invested enough resources to protect and care for the elderly in Sweden. I think of the people that have died, about 90% of them are above 70. So that's it has been a debate in Sweden about this, and there's clearly a need to provide more financial resources to the health sector. And I think here in Uganda you rely very much on the support from donors when it comes to building the health system. But I think that Uganda has to take a big responsibility and allocate more funds in the coming budgets for the health sector. because I mean the experts are actually telling us that this COVID-19 will not be the last pandemic. In the future we will have another one, and I think it's very important that we prepare ourselves, that the countries prepare for it. Sweden was not fully prepared, Uganda I don't believe was fully prepared, so to focus more on support to the health sector I think is crucial.
Yeah. How about the recovery of the economy? What would you advise, Uganda could focus on to come up, Of course, the president has said that they will inject money in the Uganda Development Bank, about 1 trillion shillings, 100 billion shillings into UDC. Is thinking about, tax exemptions until September. He's put in place, and the Minister of Finance has put in place some sort of package that Uganda can adopt. I don't know what your advice in terms of economic recovery for the country, for Uganda would be.
It's difficult to say, but I think to provide support to the private sector is crucial, because the private sector is the engine in the economy, and in order to do so you will also if the private sector is growing, they will be able to employ more of the young people that are unemployed today. So I think that would be, if I should give any advice, I think that would be my key advice, to focus on support to the private sector.
Private sector indeed.
Yes.
Well, Your Excellency, I'm so happy. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on these issues. But perhaps before we close this broadcast, I wanted to know where the party is going to be. Do you have any arrangements for the people in, Swedish people living in Uganda, or Ugandans want to celebrate with you the National Day? Do you have any program that you have lined up for them for tomorrow, and cut cake and celebrate?
Honestly, we don't have, because we have a tradition here in Uganda that we are celebrating the National Day together with our Nordic brothers and sisters, with the Nordic embassies. So usually we have a joint Nordic celebration. Last year we had a big event at the Sheraton Hotel with, I don't know, maybe 700 guests, and we were planning to have the same this year, but unfortunately it was not possible because of the situation.
So it's going to be an e-celebration?
Yes, it will be an e-celebration. It will be, yes.
So we raise the glasses on E. I mean, this whole Corona thing is changing everything.
Yes,
everything is going to be going E.
That's true.
Is there any communication you're sending out to the people, on this day as we conclude, this interview? Any message out there to the Swedish nationals and indeed the country at large as you, get to celebrate the National Day?
Well, I think this interview is part of the messages that we are sending out to both Ugandans and the Swedes. And we are also planning to have a live Facebook event tomorrow, where we will be open for receiving questions regarding Sweden and our celebration. But otherwise, I think if I should send any message to both Swedes and Ugandans, that of course in the very difficult situation we have with the pandemic, that would be to stay safe, and many people are worried, but I think we should try to think positively. We will overcome this, and we will do it together. I think it's important to emphasize that we are doing this together, and we need, it's a global pandemic, we need more of global solutions, more, not less, of international cooperation.
We will certainly get through this together.
Yes.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and happy National Day tomorrow.
Thank you very much.